Welcome to an episode of After Hours Ag Podcast. I've got Kevin Gillespie. He's our guest today on this wonderful day at the Big Iron Farm Show, day 2. Today is a foggy day. We've got fog so thick you could cut it with your hand. It's like literally dripping off the machine here. That's how heavy the cut there, the dew is. And why we've got Kevin on this podcast, it's the K-Hart Spyder Drill. If you're watching this video, you're seeing it behind us. It's lime green. I call it Artie Cat green, which is a favorite color of mine, by the way, a very desired color. And he's got this drill in our booth. We work together on this ready. My company is now a dealer for K-Hart seeders, row units, whether you want to convert your jaw your drill to the K-Hart opener, check that out. Or it's time to get a bigger, badder, meaner, better machine. This K-Hart could be a good fit for you, and we're going to talk about that in this podcast. Kevin, what machine sizes do you do?
Our machine sizes for width is a 40-foot unit, a 60-foot unit like you see right here today, 66, and a 74-foot unit. So those are the frame sizes that we currently have available.
And spacing?
Seed spacing range is from 7.5 inch to 10 to 12. We have done some custom seed spacing before in the past. But our standard seed spacing is 7.5, 10, and 12 inch.
Okay.
And you can just submit that order and we'll configure that to the seed spacing that you're looking for. And whether you want IRCs or not IRCs. So inter-row coulter is what that stands for. And that's basically a fertilizer bander, another set of gangs that mounts in the front of the drill to apply fertilizer.
Okay, so you can get the mid-row banders, the MRBs, or the SFPs, or the IRCs, whatever you're used to using. You can get those on this machine?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. You can get that in any configuration except for the 74-foot with 7.5 inch seed spacing. It gets to be just too much weight on the frame to throw mid-row banders.
Yes. I calculated 74 feet. If I did my calculation right, 7.5 inch spacing, you've got 118 row units.
Yep.
That's a fair bit.
Yeah.
And if I did my math right with the horsepower requirements, it's between 6 and 9, is that?
6 and 8 horsepower per foot, depending on if you got IRCs or not.
Oh, per foot.
Per foot.
Okay, I did per row, and it was like, wow, that's a lot of tractor.
Oh no, per foot of the machine.
Okay, that's a lot better. There's tractors that exist besides the biggest big bud that can pull it then.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. We talked about weight too. I think one of the most common reactions of seeing this machine is holy cow, or other words of this is a beast.
Yeah, it's a heavy build frame. We do that for durability and longevity. But one of the other key factors is we designed this frame so for the most narrow seed spacing, so 7.5 inch seed spacings that we build out, we've got enough frame weight for the maximum down pressure needed to cut through any residue that we're going through and compact the soil. So that's one of the biggest drawbacks that you see on some disc drills in the market is they have a tendency, if it's hard compaction and a lot of residue, they want to ride up and over that residue. And if the blades are worn at all, they can't cut through that residue. So you need sharp blades or a double disc design like we have combined with weights. And those two factors together helps eliminate hairpinning virtually entirely on this platform.
I'm glad you mentioned the double blade because I think, at least in my mind, when I hear double disc, I don't think no-till.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'm thinking conventional, some tillage of some kind, some trash management. Explain to me how the double disc here works, that double thing, and how it helps it do better and how it does no-till.
Yeah, and this is specifically designed as a no-till drill. There are some situations where we've worked in light tillage with heavy enough soils, but primarily no-till drill. And we do this with the Gent undercut openers. So our Gent undercut openers is set on a pivot leg, and we've got a 17-inch disc that carries the vast majority of the load of that row unit. And that's making your incision into the ground and cutting through that compaction and makes that initial cut into the residue. Then we've got a 15-inch disc with a beveled edge on the inside, and we have those set up where it creates a kiss point. And that 15-inch disc spins faster, shearing the residue and opening up that seed furrow. And so since we're cutting it at an angle, we just tip open that seed furrow, drop the seed in, and then we've got the rest of the weight of that row unit transferred into the packer tire gauge wheel, and that closes that seed furrow. So we get good seed to soil contact on this. So it's a little bit of a hybrid between a disc drill and a planter designed for no-till situation. So that's what one of the things that's most innovative about this product is that Gent undercut opener. It's the backbone of this entire platform.
The way I've made sense of this double disc and the way you've talked about it, and I haven't heard you say this directly, but maybe you were implying that already, is with that other smaller disc spinning, it's really replacing the scraper. I know there's a scraper next to the seed tube that's you're probably calling the scraper, but this is like a rotating scraper, right? It's making sure that it's keeping the dirt out of the furrow. It's defining that furrow, that seed slot. And then, like you said, that's an incredible benefit that the disc is actually shearing or cutting that residue as it's going around at a different speed. That's reducing hairpinning, which is kind of that nemesis word that everybody's fighting on traditional no-till drills.
No, absolutely. And that secondary disc is not set at the same 22-degree angle. And so that's what's really opening up the ground because the soil starts at that kiss point, and that 15-inch disc spinning faster and shearing that residue is helping open up that furrow. So we're not on a normal disc drill, they're set at about a 7-degree angle. And so you can get sidewall compaction and mud will stick to that a lot worse in certain situations and creates more drag on the drill. These are on a pivot arm assembly, so they auto pull straight. That secondary disc is spinning faster, shearing that material, but it's opening up the seed furrow right at that kiss point, a lot like a planter does. And so we're just opening it up, drops the seed in there, and then packing or close.
Does it allow the soil to close over that easier? And how would that compare to a traditional disc drill out there?
Yeah, so we're not necessarily trying to fill in a bunch of material into that seed furrow. We're just trying to close the ground that we just basically wedged open. Or we opened up the soil flap, as it's been described to me by Scott Usdahl, is we're just opening up the soil in more of a flap with that 15-inch disc, dropping the seed in there and closing that. So not as much disturbance as you would expect on this when you look at this machine and how big and intimidating it can seem sometimes. We're moving in very little ground and disturbing the soil as little as possible, but we're getting great seed to soil contact. So we're trying to get the best of both worlds with a simple design.
Now, you talked about a walking leg. If you haven't seen this in person, our listeners, our viewers, they're going to be like, what's a walking leg? It's unique.
Yeah. So the two discs are actually on a pivoting arm that can move side to side. And that does a couple of different things for us. It allows it to auto straighten itself. As soon as the tractor starts moving forward, it'll pull that disc blade dead straight. So it eliminates draft as soon as the tractor starts moving forward. Along with that, as well as if you're making gradual turns, it'll follow the contour of the ground and prevent that side skidding that you'll get on your outer wings when you're making gradual turns around the field. And another thing that it does is it allows that leg to have some give and move. So if you do hit a rock, not all that impact is getting slammed into that spindle assembly. That leg allows it to move, and it makes it very modular. So if you do have a breakdown or anything does break, you can pull one bolt, pop a pin, and slide that old leg out and a new one in. So let's say you hit a rock pile. This happened this spring, actually. A customer swung out a little wide and ran one of the outer row units.
It's not just theoretical.
No, it's real. Ran one of the outer units into a rock pile and broke two of the spindles. Didn't want to take the time to pull the old spindles out. So we've got a customer care kit or field ready kit, as we describe it, where we send the customer a few extra disc legs. He just pulled one of his replacement disc legs out, popped the pin, slapped the new one in, was up and running in minutes, rather than having to do major work and find a way to pull those spindles out of that disc leg. So it keeps your durability, but also your serviceability at a higher rate. It keeps this machine moving in the field, even when you accidentally swing a little wide and hit a rock pile.
Yeah, that's important. We're touching on maintenance here. That's a big deal for a lot of people. We're not immune or unaware of the maintenance that many of these disc drills require. They do need that maintenance because you got to have functioning parts. If something's not pivoting right or too sloppy, if the disc's worn, if a host of things, right? What this thing comes a little different. This thing's got less moving components. It's got how many grease zerks?
On the openers, we're moving to just one grease zerk on that pivot leg. So these machines are all getting updated with maintenance-free bearing on all of the seed opener discs. So it'll just be one grease point on each one of the openers. That'll be about every 40 to 60 hours. You'll have to hit that with a couple shots of grease. And then your fold points, and then your pivoting carry tires in the front and your hitch. And so that'll be your grease points.
Which is about how many per machine on this machine, the 60-footer?
Oh man, see, I need to do the math on that, because I always used to think in the realm of, oh, we got to grease all of the disc on all the openers. So this new update that we're doing is going to be huge. I'll actually need to run the numbers. I don't want to give you the incorrect count on that.
It's one per row, and then maybe a dozen or two on the frame.
Yep.
Couple dozen on the frame, and I want to not forget about, we got to touch on the frame. There's some uniqueness of this frame, but before we get there, continuing on the maintenance thing, this thing, what do guys have to expect to maintain on this besides greasing? After so many acres, you got the discs that are wearing, but what else wears out? What do you got to plan to change?
It'll be your disc. That's your primary ground engaging item. Machines that are stored outside that get some weather checking on some of your seed delivery hoses, you might have to replace some of those at some point, but there's not a lot of moving parts on the actual openers. At some point, your gauge wheels are going to wear the rubber out. So that's something to think about in the future, but that's not what I would call routine maintenance where you're looking at it. The main thing that we have guys inspect and check for postseason inspection is, okay, what does the wear look like on your disc? And do we need to reshim them? So anyone that's familiar with planters, very similar process where we're looking for a particular gap, and we want, when those discs go in the ground, to be about a business card or 2 business card gap between them. Any more than that, we'll need to pop one disc off and reshim those discs. So we got that good kiss point when we go into the ground. So we're shearing off that residue mat that we're trying to cut through. So anyone that's familiar with planters, that's going to be very familiar with them. If you are just a disc drill customer, a little bit of a new concept with the double disc design, but pretty small maintenance ask holistically on this machine in comparison to a lot of other platforms that are on the market.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Now, switching gears on the frame, we've got some interesting things. One thing I've noticed when we were going through the demo or the training on this was something called service mode. Talk to us about the service mode. What does that do, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so we've got the rear gang of openers on this platform, and all of our Spyder platforms set up on cylinders. So we can actually move that rear gang forward and backward to give you more room for serviceability. This frame is designed to give you as much room as possible, but we wanted to improve that. So whether you're adjusting your depth settings, pressure settings, or just hitting those grease zerks on those pivot arms, you want to make sure you've got room to actually get in here, maintain, and properly check over this drill. So service mode moves this rear gang all the way back to give you more room onto that front gang assembly. So you can get in between there and have full, easy access. Then if I want to do anything to the rear gang, I can put it in field mode, which will move this assembly all the way forward and giving me even more room on the backside. So if you look at this platform, there's already a ton of room, but we tried to improve that serviceability standpoint and just make it easier from changing depth on this. If it's difficult to do, you might skip something. You might not do the best job you can do when it comes to setting and dialing in a platform. So serviceability, I think this is the best drill in the market from a serviceability standpoint, from gaining access and having that rear gang on a cylinder platform where we can move it forward and backwards.
Very good. Very good. That was definitely standing out to me, that feature and what it does for us. And I heard this spring at Tony Fast Ag demoed this machine.
Yep.
He tried it and he liked it. He's actually looking at getting one to replace his Bourgault disc drill. And he mentioned that the service mode actually helped him solve an issue he had in the field. And maybe this isn't something you would advertise, but this is real world situations, real world conditions. And you know what? Not everything in the real world is perfect the way you want. And so he had issues with, like, I think it was thistle, and was it kochia weed or something?
Yeah, I do believe there's the kochia there, and
it was like
actually some rocks.
Some rocks too. So rocks kicking up, and there was just things causing the rear rank to have issues. Moved it back. I know that reduces some downforce opportunities there, but he probably didn't need it all. And he was able to go without having issues anymore. So that got them through those bad spots.
Yeah. And we actually ran into that with one other customer that was out in Montana running a 74-foot unit too, where a bunch of thistle had blown onto the fence line on one side of the field. So there was thistle up to the bottom of the frame that was loose. It wasn't held into the ground. And so I was wanting to catch between the front gang and the rear gang. And when you have it all the way in field mode, not a ton of clearance, but if it's not attached to the ground, that residue, and it's free floating, it wants to catch wherever it can and start to build. So in that particular situation, what we had that customer do, and actually Tony do in his situation as well, is we moved it back into service mode. What that does is it drops the down pressure on that back rank by about 12 or 15 pounds for a down pressure standpoint, but it creates a clearance gap between the front openers and the rear openers so they're not so close together, which allowed debris to pass through. Again, I don't advertise that and push it out as a messaging to customers.
You are now.
But it's something that we have our dealers have in their back pocket for those edge cases. It's pretty rare that you run into them, but we do run into them in the field. And so that's been a solution that we've pulled out. Obviously, this machine should run in field mode, but in those edge cases, we've got an option to readjust the actual undercarriage of this machine to a point that's going to allow more clearance and material to pass through.
I think anyone listening to this would choose a not ideal mode, you could call it, what it's designed for all the time in ideal conditions, just to get through those difficult ones and be very happy. And it does a good job still. Another thing Tony mentioned, Tony Fast, was how that walking leg walked around the rocks, just like he said. Well, he liked that feature. He's got a lot of rocks. It was like, holy cow.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned with this product is there's no black and white. There's a gray area that we operate in with certain conditions and how we set and configure a machine. And that's why I don't paint with a broad brush of, oh, it's going to be perfect in every situation, or this is going to be the magic product that solves everyone's problems. But I've got enough options to configure this machine, set it up for, like, pivot locks, for example, is an option that we've got, where if you're in softer soil that doesn't create enough resistance to spin that pivot leg straight and spin the disc, we've got a pivot lock where we can lock those straight for those customers in the sandier environment. So we've got solutions for those customers. We just want to understand on the front side what they're going into, what conditions they might run into, so we can set them up for success the best we can.
Speaking of understanding and setting them up for success, how do guys get to seeing more about this machine, even getting it on their farm? I understand there's some demo opportunities.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so few ways of doing that. You can go to khart.com, our main websites, and register your information there so we can reach out and figure that out. If you are a Ready customer, I highly recommend going to ready.com.
Thank you for that shout out.
And throw that in there. You guys did a great job of setting up your website where a customer can submit and actually look at our information on your website and also submit for a demo request, because my hope is that we get a couple of demos running with you guys and we get this out in areas and to customers that haven't seen it. That was one of my favorite parts about the show yesterday. There was an individual that came up from South Dakota specifically to see this drill because he saw a video that you guys posted.
Really?
And he just wasn't familiar with it. And he was asking us great questions about some of the options that we had because he wanted a split air pack. So he wanted to see two different crops at the exact same time, one on the front rank and one on the back rank. And so he was asking us questions about that. I was like, oh, it's a split air pack option. We've got that to the factory on 26 models. And then as soon as you looked at the product and found that out, he was, I wouldn't say sold, but he wants one on his farm.
Yep.
So,
The desire is high. And you know what? On these air packs, the manifold system, you don't mess around with steel. You've got stainless steel bends where it would normally erode or wear out a hose fast. You got some stainless steel tubes there swept, and it's right behind us. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but then there's also stainless towers, manifolds, the heads, and wireless blockage systems. It's like everything I would have to put on a seeder to fix it, you guys are putting out on the factory. So thanks for taking away our future work.
yeah, absolutely. And a few other upgrades that we're doing, we're actually upgrading our air pack system even more. So we're moving to what we call the premium air pack, and we're putting that on standard on all 2026 machines. So any new 26 model is getting a premium air pack, so more stainless, and heavier duty 2.5-inch line that's going to have higher longevity. We've got a lot of customers, especially with the 74-foot machines that store their machines outside. And after a handful of years, they start to weather check them and they're cracking them. So we got upgraded 2.5-inch line and more stainless steel that we're throwing on these machines. Because if it's something that we would want on our machine, we do our best to throw it on from the factory.
Very good, very good. And I can't get away from the frame discussion until we talk about the uniqueness of this frame in the fact that, number one, folding, but also there's a rotating hitch in the front. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we've got a steerable hitch in the front that's got 2 hydraulic cylinders, one on either side. We do several things with that. Let's say you're backing up this drill and you want to be able to back it in a straight line. We've got the ability to lock those cylinders, and so it equalizes the pressure where you're at, and it locks those cylinders right where they are, so it makes it easier to back up. We've got a restricted mode that it auto goes into as soon as you fold this drill. It throws it into restricted mode, which just doesn't allow the hitch to turn freely and easily. And we put it in that formation for transportation, just so it's not free floating. And so when you're making turns, they're going to be gradual, slower, going down hills. It's not going to want to push on that hitch quite as bad. We've also got a skew functionality. So we've got some customers that plant on side hills, for example, and implements want to drift down that side hill when you're seating on one of those. So we've got a pitch and yaw sensor on the front of that hitch, and on your skew functionality, you can turn that on and it'll energize the downside cylinder, preventing it from drifting quite as bad on the implement. So some really cool features. We probably don't talk about the features in that hitch quite enough, actually.
I have been today. And yesterday. I've mentioned it so many times, in the guys with those mid-row banders, or IRCs as they're called on this. I was like, have you ever had this situation? Like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so that's a great feature.
Yeah, and it's one that I think I forget to talk about it during trade shows a lot, because we're talking about the openers, the way it folds, the weight and design of this, and I think I missed that hitch a lot, so I'm glad you brought that up. And then the fold, so we have an M fold design on this platform, and so it folds and unfolds differently than anything else on the market. And I think that's probably one of the things that caught your eye originally when we were looking at this drill.
Yes, like the Spyder, it's named after.
Yeah. And so the outer wing folds into the inner wing on the outside of the inner wing and then folds in. And so it's actually really cool when you fold it, unfold, but it allows us to collapse this into a smaller envelope size for the width of the machine and the weight of the machine that we're talking about, and ride it on our center backbone frame, which is a heavy, well-built frame. Obviously, we need it for the amount of weight that we've got in the inner and outer wing on this platform.
Very cool. Any other features on the frame that we're missing?
I'm trying to think.
Big wheels. I mean, hey, still point out the obvious here.
Yeah, there's one right behind me here. So large transport tires for great flotation, both on the road and then in the field as well. And we do have a dual wheel kit option. What that is we throw secondary tires on the inner wing assembly. So for those customers that are in wetter conditions or softer soils, to make sure that we're distributing that weight evenly across the field as much as possible and not causing any excess compaction, we've got a dual wheel kit on these frames as well. So honestly, the frame is so well built that we feel hardly a need to talk about it, because when people look at it, it's like, okay, this is pretty bulletproof. It absolutely is.
Yep, I think I heard it's 30% more steel than most frames out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's which adds weight to the machine, but needed on the disc drill side. So it's a benefit rather than a drawback. Because when people think weight, they're like, oh, okay, this is going to cause more compaction. We mitigate that with the extra flotation, and that weight's needed for those openers to do a good job in that heavy residual hard compaction.
Yeah, and I'm thinking most customers I've been around, or my own thinking, maybe it's not the same for everyone, but the weight is a good thing. Heavy, simple, low maintenance, it just goes.
Yep. And one of the customers I was talking to yesterday, like we were talking about the frame and the weight. He's like, I'm just happy that I wouldn't have to throw suitcase weights on the outer wings in order to hold the row units down. Like, yeah, that's definitely not a problem, or something that you're going to have to think about on this drill.
Yep. So what about color?
Yeah, so this is our color scheme across the platform. Even our old Gen 2s had a lot of this color. And we went to, on the Spyder platform, Gen 2 is the previous model. The Spyder platform went heavy on the green, but I think it looks great out there in the field. Honestly, it stands out and it makes you pay attention to this drill out there.
Just like the Steigers, you could always see them from a long ways away.
Exactly.
Now, a lot of people are asking about carts. What are cart options out there?
We are compatible with every major cart that's on the market right now. So from the factory, when we find out what a customer is looking for, and even if it's a unit on the ground at a dealership, we've got hitch compatibility and hydraulic compatibility with any major cart manufacturer on the market. So we find out what cart the customer wants to use, year, make, and model, and we configure the drill for that. So we've got customers with tow behind, tow between, John Deere, Vaterstad, Burgo carts, Flexi-coil. I do believe there's even one with a Morris cart out there up in Canada. So we have plenty of options. So whatever you prefer using and you're comfortable with dialing in, I think the cart is probably the most difficult thing when it comes to drills. Like this one, there's a little bit of a learning curve with setting, learning the monitor, but really dialing in the cart and making sure that you're calibrated, you've got good distribution, you've got enough airflow. I think that's where all the stress comes from. But as soon as you got seed delivered to the rows and we're placing it in, good seed to soil contact, that's the easy part. So, but yeah, we are compatible and we set up the drills from a hitch, hydraulic, and electrical standpoint for whatever cart you want to work with.
Yep. And I'm thinking Ready's going to have some solutions, whether it's we've got some used options. We've got a 430 bushel cart in the booth here. It's a John Deere. It's got tank scales, by the way. We added those. That's a huge value add and need out there. So you know your product is the right amounts going out. And then also there's other options out there too. We've got a new one coming down the pipe that I think will pair well with this. And so talk to us about the cart and the drill together. It's going to go well together. There's options out there. Maybe you've got a cart that you like or you're good with and it's on your farm already. You already own it. You got some upgrades on it, maybe from us. And you want to keep it. You want to keep it and you can put it with this drill. Great option. Good way to go. There's ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the only other thing that I would add is if you want to learn more or even test this out on a small scale, you guys here at Ready have a distribution agreement with us for the Gent undercut opener, which is an add-on for a John Deere. So if you got an 1895 or 1890 platform and you want to test out the openers to see if it's effective for you, I would highly recommend just trying a couple of those Gent openers on your John Deere 1890 or 1895 and seeing how well the opener actually works on that platform, and then just amplify it with the entire K-Hart platform. So reach out to Ready on that.
That's a good point. You don't have to demo an entire Spyder machine to see how this opener works on your farm. If you've got the John Deere drill, which many of our listeners have, and many of our customers have done and or have had, you can put a couple. I've seen many farmers put one on, put two on, and try it and see it. And then there's been some that have converted all their rows. What's a US dollar estimated price to convert per row your John Deere drill?
To convert for the whole setup, it's probably going to be right around $1,100 to $1,200 per row for that whole new setup. So a good way to try these openers and just a proof of concept and a gut check for yourself. Just get a handful of them, throw them on. I would do probably the outer wing. So when you make a full round, you combine a handful of those rows so you can see a differential between there, and do some population stand counts and do some tests. It's you've got the opportunity to do a little bit of research and R&D on your own farm with trying the Gent undercut opener and see if it actually cuts through residue at a more effective rate than what your current platform does. So easy way to test it out before you really even look into this. So I think that's a great option.
Yes, yes, we want it to work. Both, you can hear that theme here. K-Hart as a company, Ready as a company, we want to make sure it works for you. We want to make sure it works for the people who have them. If it doesn't, then let's not have if you have it. It's a great product in a lot of situations, but in some it might not be the right fit. And that means we need to make sure, you need to make sure, we're going to do it with you, that it's the right fit for you. And we're here to track with you.
Yeah, and just on the theme of right fit, it's like if it's a customer that does tillage and they've got sandy soil, think about a planter on pivot sands. When it doesn't have enough friction to spin the disc, that's not the right place for this type of product. So again, it's not the magic product that's going to fit in every situation. So that's why talking to guys that ready and figuring out, they'll ask the right questions to figure out if this is the right product for you. And for a lot of conditions, it is, but there are some of those edge cases where there's places that I will put the drill.
What conditions is this machine ideal for or not ideal for? How are people going to know, like, what if it's going to work in their conditions?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Matt. So from a condition standpoint, this is a no-till drill. And so we want to go into no-till situations where you've got tons of residue. That's our specialty, and that's where this is going to perform the best. Now, where a condition that would make me a little bit nervous or that I wouldn't want to put this drill in, let's say I've got a customer with blow sand that's doing tillage. So I actually saw this customer was fully organic, great guy, but a used drill and tested it out. But they plowed and dissed and field cultivated a blow sand field just to manage weeds from a completely organic standpoint. And then I had to dig down into the ground 6 inches to find some soil structure or some good resistance. It's a lot like a planter in that situation. If you don't have friction to spin those blades, they'll just stop dead, and then it'll push material into the front of that.
Plowing, as I say it.
Yeah, and it'll just build up on the front. So those are conditions where this isn't the right product for that environment. Now, but as long as it wasn't tilled and there was some soil structure there, it would have created enough resistance to spin that assembly. But as soon as they started doing tillage and sand, not the right product for that particular environment. So I would highly recommend reaching out to the guys at Ready, and they'll ask you all the questions about soil type, what you're going into, whether you're doing tillage or not. And if you are doing tillage, how deep are you going, and what's your soil structure like? Like you're in the Red River Valley, wouldn't really scare me off because you got enough resistance in the soil that we've got here where it's going to spin that assembly. And so I'm not as concerned in there, but there are edge cases where I want to make sure our customers are getting the right product in the right place to be successful.
Yep.
And so that's important to know and understand up front.
Okay, I know this is a question that's asked often is how fast does it go?
Most of our customers are seeding at between 6 and 6.5 miles an hour. Now that's really dependent. My preference is to have our guys going a bit slower than that, frankly. But that's where our average is. And certain crop types, so if you're doing large seed where you're pushing large capacities to the outer wings, you really want to pay attention to what your cart's doing in those environments. Are we delivering enough seed to the outer runs as fast and effectively as possible to get good seed to soil contact and seed spacing? So that's where the average is. But in some situations, you go down. There are customers that have gone up, but our average is 6 to 6.5.
Okay.
A lot of our guys.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yep.
Now, a lot of people are asking after they're seeing this and they're interested, how much does it cost? Is that something we can talk about on this podcast?
Yeah, I think we can talk about it. The hard part is it's what configuration are we talking about? So from frame size to seed spacing, if you want the IRCs or not, and then are we throwing rock guards on this machine? So a ton of variability in that. I think the best way to do that is talk to the guys at Ready, yourself included, and you guys can put together all of what that customer is going to need in their conditions, and we'll get you a solid quote when it comes to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's hard to give ballpark when you've got 4 different frame sizes and enough configurations to blow your mind. So hard to do a ballpark in there. So I think that's the best route to go on that one. Like, does customer need premium mud scrapers or not? Rock guards or not? So a lot of different options that we could go through there. And so we'll get all that information put together and pre-qualifying questions and get you a quote that's actually reflective of what you'd be looking at.
Very good. I know this was a pretty intensive product review and discussion with Kevin here, the USA rep for K-Hart, and we're grateful to have him at the Big Iron Farm Show with us and having this machine in our booth to highlight a new machine, a new way to do things, and we think a good way to do things in a lot of areas. Reach out to us. If we can help you, we certainly will do our best to to do that and get you the information you need to make a good decision there. Thank you, Kevin, for being on the podcast, joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for letting us take up most of your boot space with this machine.
Hey, it's a welcome fit.
Thank you, Matt.